87 days and Super Rugby Aotearoa, it kicks off, and these 5 coaches that are with us, they've got to deal with it all. They've got to bring their squads together next season and go through it all again. Tony Brown, Scott Robertson, Jason Holland. We've got Clayton McMillan, who's now with the Chiefs, the head of theirs, and Leon McDonald. Tabai's come in, Sir John Kerwin. I had a brief sojourn at coaching at Super Rugby. Didn't last very long, thanks to you, JK. But anyway, let's talk to the defending champions, because that's what you are, and you continue to be defending champions. All right, run me through it. The challenges of playing this competition and what you're preparing for next year.
Challenge is a quick pre-season. Obviously, for all of us, it's all the same. But I just think it's the relentlessness of it, just each week, and the ability to get up. And they're derby matches, so they're the toughest that you play outside of Test rugby. Still holding any grudges, the fact you didn't get to play the last game?
No, it left a bit of tension for next year, I suppose. And the day was beautiful that Sunday afternoon. It would have been a great day. But, yeah, we're excited about next year. It's going to come around quick.
Brownie, you've taken to the fold there down at the Highlanders. The fact you put your hand up when they couldn't find anybody else. I think you were going to take the job regardless. But, as always, it's a challenge getting your squad together. How comfortable are you? In a couple of days, you've got a competitive team. Yeah,
obviously we've only got 2 All Blacks now, so we're starting from scratch. So just trying to find a bit of experience to go with a lot of our younger talent and hopefully put forward a pretty competitive team.
Well, I don't know who organised the seating here, but they've done it on purpose. Did you do that?
Yeah, well, I wasn't putting you over there with Leon, because all of a sudden you'd be ganging up on everybody.
No, I think the question that I have is, when I came back to New Zealand, the squads had gone up from 26 to 30, then 33, and I hear that, and this is a question for all of you, that some of you went through like 44 players last year. So how do you actually select for that? Do you have to have your own team now and then have this list of players that you can choose from because of the attrition rate? Start with you, Leon, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I'm always going to go
the big squads, and you've got, you've got injury replacements or All Black replacements coming as well. So we've got 10 extra players coming in the pre-season. So by the time the All Blacks come back and you got your 10 All Black replacements, you've got a big squad of 40, 48. We've got ITC players, young players that are coming in as well. So you could at one point have over 50 players at your camp. So it's a lot of juggling.
Yeah, look, it's actually a bonus to get those replacement players in that when the All Blacks are away, get a real good read on them, and you know you're going to have to use a big part of your squad. So having them for 5 or 6 weeks while the All Blacks aren't there is actually quite an advantage, I reckon, to get a good read on some of the players that aren't actually in your squad. Can you get them from anywhere?
You can get them from anywhere.
So you went hunting. Everyone goes hunting. Clayton, you've come into the role now. You're taking over at the Chiefs, and Tabai would probably fill you on how difficult a challenge this is, this competition. What have you learnt, and when did you get involved? And when you look at the competition as a whole, what are you preparing yourself for?
I sort of had the fortune of having a bit of time. I got appointed in March, and then COVID came along, and I was able to do a bit of planning, and then Tabs and the rest of the crew were grateful enough to allow me to come in and spend a significant amount of time in the Chiefs environment through Super Rugby Aotearoa. So saw all the good stuff that was going on, and as part of a review process and around seeing where I'll be able to add some influence, and I look forward to being able to do that. Fine lines though, Tabs, right? I mean, you experienced how close you're on a number of occasions, the fact that you just need to go to that very edge. And for the players, the learning experience, say the Chiefs went through, all the teams that have gone through something similar at some point through the season?
Of course they do. And I think one of the great things about Super Rugby Aotearoa is the margins are so close. So you've got Razor's group who are looking to go, 5 in a row. And other teams like the Chiefs are trying to get their first win. But on any given Saturday, it's anybody's game. And I think all the coaches really believe that this is definitely one of the closely matched competitions in the world. What about the thoughts, Brownie, and all of you, this Australian component that hopefully gets off the ground? All of a sudden you play for a title here in New Zealand, and then you get a chance for that trans-Tasman competition, as long as obviously travel allows that. Is that something that appeals to you guys, the fact that you look forward to it, and how do you think it'll benefit you guys?
Yeah, well, I think it's always good for New Zealand teams to play a different style of footy, and Aussies do play a different style, a lot more attacking, try and hold the ball for longer periods of time. So it's a good challenge for us to go over there and take their best teams on as well.
Do we like what we've seen from Australia? Razor, when you look at the improvements they made through their competition?
There's definitely more depth in all their squads, and you can see it exposed at international level. Obviously, the Reds have got a great backline, and you got a bit of a Brumbies forward pack, and the other ones are mixed in. So, the Force stuff, they're allowed to recruit from outside too, which gives them a bit of depth. And, it's not easy to go to Perth. You think we're playing the Force, but when you're going to play and go that far, it makes a difference.
Do we all see them as being an important part of the future, JK? I mean, that's Trans-Tasman competition. You've been very vocal on this.
Yeah, no, I think we need to bring in the Japanese. I think that's also important. So I'd like to see a hybrid, like an NRL situation, and then also bring in the Japanese and other teams in later on in the season. I don't know what the attrition rate's like for you guys, but one of the questions I had is, I know you all thoroughly study the game and you study it and coach to win, but us who are sitting on the couch, we're looking at the game from an entertainment point of view.
Yeah.
For a freer game, what sort of rule changes would you make? What would you guys do? You study it every week, you look at a lot of clips. Couple of things, one rule that you think would change our game and make it a little bit less combative.
One of the things that's been entertained at the moment is bringing in a dropout from the goal line. And I personally think that's a good thing. Reduces the amount of 5 metre scrums we have, a lot of resets, increases the amount of ball and time play we have, and that's what people pay to see. They want to see us playing rugby and not having continuous scrum sets, so probably a good thing.
You coached the international game, Brownie, for you. I mean, you look at how what we've seen probably in the last 6 weeks, out of the Autumn Nations Cup and what's coming out of Australia. It's been pretty hard work, and you're as inventive as anyone when it comes to the attacking game. What are you seeing right now in regard to what JK's talking about? What would you just adjustments, or once again, have we not quite re-emphasised maybe what we thought we were going?
Yeah, I was talking to Clayton on the way up. I think we've got to get the offside right. So for me, we need a breakdown referee, and then we need a offside referee on the field, keeping the offside line back.
Similar to league then? In the way that they control the offside lines?
Yeah, I think so. Different rules, and I think that offside line's got to be clearly behind the last feet, and that's the job of the referee on the field, keeping those guys back, keeping them onside, to allow the attack to have a little bit more space, because what happens in the game is we attack the breakdown and the referee's in charge of dealing with the breakdown, and then while they're attacking the breakdown, the defence is getting set and they're coming at you. So give us another half a metre so the attack can have a bit more space. It'll speed the game up, ball will be in play longer, you can hang on to the ball for longer periods.
You'll agree, is that something that, as consensus as coaches, when you talk about it, you do reviews from seasons, Jason, that they feel as though that's one in particular that can be hammered?
Yeah, totally agree with Brownie. I think to bring line speed, which is the strong defence we're seeing, which is dominating, if you have to go backwards, it's how far you have to go back. If you're not having to get completely onside, you can go forward and shut down attacks. So I reckon there's real substance in what Brownie's talking there.
Eddie Jones said we're too dominant, we need a bit more fatigue. He talked about possibly changing the bench. I mean, have you thought about different ways to look at replacements? I know we've got to put player safety first, but he thinks changing players, fatigue should be a big part of it at the end of the game. Razor?
It's a good question. He thinks differently, doesn't he, Eddie?
About everything, let's be honest. He thinks differently about everything. But there's nothing wrong with that, because these are questions we want the game to face, right? Because
he's got one at the table here too.
Yeah, he does.
JK.
Well, everyone would like to see the games differently, right?
Yeah. 100%. Look, it's quite tricky because there's quite a bit of safety side to having 8 on the bench too, with your front rowers and looking after them. It's a tough physical game. They're big men, and our rules around scrummaging, we want a good strong scrum. That's our point of difference, and our mauls. And when you're making all those changes, they can only get to a certain time before they're gone. The way of doing it is have someone that's multi-skilled in the back set. You'd have 1 9, 1 halfback, or maybe 2 backs that covers everything. So you're only probably looking at 7, back to how it used to be, rather than 8. So it's 1 back less.
Yes. First people to go. It's always the first people to go.
That's one.
So let's talk about that. Yes, there's law changes, and you'd like to see the style of game. In terms of Super Rugby Aotearoa then, Leon, and all of you, is it the place to develop players for Test match rugby? Because we're seeing there's a significant difference right now. Maybe not intensity, but the way the game's being played. Is it getting harder and harder now for players to prepare for that next level? And does it make them ready when you're playing Super Rugby?
Well, I think the competition is so intense every week. I think it's about as close as you're going to get. Probably a different style of game in New Zealand. The way New Zealand teams play, we want to use the ball more often. Generally, we started playing Sunday afternoon games, which everyone's embracing, which is awesome. You know, you've got to prepare really well. I think that's the biggest learning for the Blues last year was you play the Crusaders and you've got to turn around the next week and you've got to play the Hurricanes, you know, and there's just no reprieve and you've got to be on the top of your game every week, and if you're 5% off, you're gone down. And the All Blacks found that out in the last series. You're just slightly off and you're in trouble. So in terms of mental preparation and what it takes to be a pro, this is a great competition.
You're looking forward to it then, Clayton, for the fact your players are probably coming in a little bit fresher than they did this year. The fact that they went through half a competition, went through a COVID break, and then they had to go through this. You know, when I say fresh, relatively, it's a short off season, but they'll know what's in front of them. The players know what their expectations.
Yeah, we just had a conversation out the back around fatigue actually coming out of the back end of Mitre 10, and there's been a lot of short competitions, but it's been a long, arduous year, and it's probably just the mental fatigue that is, you know, probably a bigger concern than the actual physical fatigue. But hey, the guys are going to get a decent break over the summer period. It's a little bit different from what it's traditionally been, where it's been a pre-season a little bit before Christmas and a little bit after. Get about a 6-week straight block post the new year, which is something different, and I'm sure we're all going to do things a little bit different. May even, you know, give people a bit of an extended break if that's what's required.
How does the teams work now? Because I know that the Chiefs used to come up and poach all the other players around the country, and the Crusaders too, by the way.
You often let people go, JK.
Yeah, I know.
You did obviously let. You just said no. Well, you're fine.
No, but how hard is it now to select players? Do you have to complete your teams pre-Mitre 10 halfway through? Is there still a pathway for those that are playing Mitre 10? Brownie?
Fraction of a pathway. Most teams are pretty locked in, heading to the end of the Super Rugby season before Mitre 10 starts. And then you're probably all 5 of us scrapping for the last...
So how does that work? How does that work when you're scrapping for it, right? I mean, do you guys ever start trading? Because that's what happened in the old days. You start trading and fighting for each other, or do you guys pick up the phone, or how does that work?
You sort of touch base with the guys you're looking at, and you find out that Leon's talked to them as well.
Yeah.
So has Scott. And,
2 days
and Clayton will be next. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and you know, but whoever sells the best dream, I suppose, gets the player, and we move on to the next one. And you know, there is the odd player in Mitre 10 Cup that comes out of nowhere. I think AJ Lamb would be one of those guys that we all probably tried to get this year, and obviously Leon got him, so he said he wanted to stay with his family, which is all good.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about opportunity. You've obviously promised them opportunity. It's not like you've got plenty of outside backs or anything. Anyway, Razor, is that part of the fun, though? Part of the enjoyment part of it, when you get to that point where you are trying to finish your squad and you start looking around and going, you know what, I've got to sell this dream to this player, and how will I go about doing that?
Yeah, you've got to have a development plan around them, and you've got to give them the opportunity how they're going to reach their goals and what they're trying to achieve, and then you've got to put the extra on top around the family and their partners and the whole package. You know, if we want to be an All Black, this is how I'm going to get you there.
Yeah. Orange Theory Stadium, that's a seller, right?
Tabs, I'll ask you because it might be a little bit harder for these guys to answer, so they might have a little bit of time to think about it. But I spoke to Gats a couple of times, and what he felt about the European game was there was a lot of different ideas coming in, different coaches from different places. Yeah. And his concern from us was playing, you know, like Leon said, we play a style of rugby. So we're a bit homogenised, and that's been fantastic for us for the last 15 years. But is that an issue now that we all play? It's a great style of football, but we do play the same style?
Good question,
Yeah, I think within each franchise, and these are great men that lead slightly differently, and on the back of that, their priorities are different, and they do hit these little tweaks in the game that, if you look closely, maybe separate them, what their point of difference might be. But I think that is the big concern. You know, we've spoken about it previewing games. We're doing a lot of the things the same, but and probably the only advantage the All Blacks get is you've got 5 teams that I won't say you're all playing the same style, but you're all pushing the margins, the 1%. How do we make this part of the game slightly better? How do we make that game slightly better? Gets has come from a completely different way the game's refed. The game's played because of the refereeing, the mentality of the coaches up there, and probably the promotion relegation. That's a complete game changer to a coach who's running a program. But like him coming back, you know, Brownie's experience with Japan, all those different experiences. You spent a long time in Europe. That comes back and hopefully strengthens the bits and pieces that we do within our own program. So, I've got a question around. We're talking about rosters.
And we'll get to that because I want to show, and that's one of the things we talked about, is that in a couple of days' time, the full squads for Super Rugby Aotearoa are going to be announced, but there is so much talent, and these are the sort of guys we can look forward to next season.
He's got it! He's unbelievable, this fellow!
Down the short side, has a Dan. Campbell, back in himself. Lovely work by Campbell. It up, and Williams has a go. To mighty Williams, the 20-year-old.
Rowe.
Gap, Xavier Rowe. Try!
Rowe, little show of the ball. Oh, brilliant!
They finally crack.
Aiming for it, Petuli. Paya!
So I asked the coaches to nominate some players, you know, we thought we'd look forward to, and of course, everyone nominated some great young talent, and then one nominated someone who's... How old is Luke Romano?
He'd be 36 by the time.
So he's just re-signed. He's the new surprise signing for the Crusaders. No surprises there. What's inspired you, before you talk about one of your young stars, what's inspired you to bring Luke back?
Just his ability to get the best out of himself and an ageing body, but also the young guys. He's like a on-field and off-field coach for you. He's a guy with an amazing amount of experience, and he can come on and clutch. He knows he's our fifth lock. You know, he's going to be pushing the young guys as much as he can, and you know, comes on 20 minutes to go, 15, 20 minutes to go, you know what you're going to get. Big scrum, great round the line out, and he's a good man.
Someone else in your squad you're looking forward to seeing play?
Yeah, obviously Tomaiti Williams, we brought in as well. He's not often you get a 6'5", 140 kilo tight head prop. You know, he's pretty unique, great athlete. He can carry the ball, and he's with the Māoris this week.
I mean, you look at this player, Brownie, and Clayton, you've got him in your squad. I mean, what have you seen? What have you liked?
Oh, exactly what Razor said, a huge lump of a man, and, you know, he got a lot of growth still in him, both physically and probably technically, but, you know, the package is certainly there, so exciting young man.
It was an interesting season, wasn't it, when you think about Mitre 10, because virtually it looked like the sun was out the whole season, Jace. I mean, that's the reality. It hardly rained once, every game. So you sort of got to see the skill set with the guys that have come into your environment that you've contracted, you know, I want to see this guy at the next level.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously we've brought in Luke Campbell, who, you know, will suit the way we play. He's a 9 with all the skills, so all the passing and kicking skills that we need to get our game going. So looking forward to see what he brings. And obviously another guy for us is Salesi Riasi. Sass has been pretty dynamic, beats a defender one-on-one, you know, a hell of a lot of the time. So it's our job to give him those opportunities.
Look, we had Clark Laidlaw on earlier on, you know, and he's been a big part of their sevens program. Is that a difficult conversation? Because you know how good he can be for you, and is that just the case where it's you'll come to an agreement?
Yeah, look, we have some really good conversations with Clarkie, so she's all pretty open, and we can figure it out what's the best thing for Sass, and everybody will be happy, I think.
We talk about squads that are getting larger and larger, the attrition rates. Leon, you know you go through a number of players, particularly when you're talking 4 big games on the bounce. I mean, for you guys you've brought in, talk about AJ Lamb, are there other guys who have come into your squad that you think are going to be pretty critical?
Yeah, look, there's we've got some good young players. A young boy that just put a stamp on the Mitre 10 Cup was Zan Sullivan, fullback. He plays a lot of 10. He's played a lot of his rugby at 10. He's a big stature. He'd be 6'2", 100 kg, a massive big left boot, and brave.
And Steve Bates says a lot about this kid because he believes his best position is first 5. Look, no Bowden Barrett for next season. Look, everyone accepts that and he understands where he is right now. So can he be a contender for that position? And are you looking forward to Stephen Perifetta coming back? And is it a role at the moment you're waiting for someone to put their hand up for?
Yeah, look, I think he's only 19, 20, you know, so 15 at the moment is a good place for him to learn his trade. He's got all the skill set that you need from a 15. He's confident, he's a good communicator, and he reads the game well. So in time, I think he'll end up in that front line.
Someone who's not new to your environment but had a massive season and a massive game on the weekend, Akira Yuwani. How much better do you think he's going to be for this season, and what are your expectations for him next year?
He was just massive, wasn't he, for the All Blacks? He was massive for the Blues. The shift to 6 has worked for him. It seems to suit his style. He's become aggressive. He's physical with his hits. He's tackling hard. He's carrying hard. And I think it's more his personal leadership, the way he conducts himself off the field's noticeable. He's become a real leader off the field. So exciting times for Aki.
Are you proud of the fact you guys have been able to turn him around? Because the big question mark was there 12 months ago, right?
Yeah, look, we're proud if we've had an input, and I think, you know, as a club we've had some, but he's done some soul searching, and a lot of it, the changes come from within himself. But it's clicked for him, and he's playing great rugby, and he seems happy on the grass. He's enjoying himself, and he seems really happy around the team as well.
Clayton, you've had, like you said, time to look at your squad, look at your group, and you've had to make some additions to it. Who's going to come in and make an impact, maybe for you later in the season, and maybe just to get their one chance?
Yeah, like the rest of the team, we've got a couple of young guys that have come into the squad. Young Xavier Rowe, ex-Hamilton boys, New Zealand 20s. I think he was really instrumental in Waikato achieving some really good success early on in the season. Picked up an injury, but then finished strong. Really strong around the fringes. Good pass, you know, growing his overall game. I think he's going to add some real value.
How critical is that under-20s program to all of you guys? You know, and particularly you talk about one player there, the fact that their development program, the fact maybe we've missed a year, you know, they haven't had that chance of experience. How important is that program, do you believe?
Oh, it's been hugely integral to, you know, developing All Blacks, future All Blacks, and Super Rugby players. In fact, I'm sure that's part of the measure of the team is the transition rate from New Zealand 20s to Super Rugby, and been hugely successful in that. And don't know what the future looks like for that program, but if it's not to be, then we need to find an adequate replacement.
Did Gats just want Sun to come home? Is that just the way it worked? Well, didn't want him kicking another drop goal to beat him once again? Is that the way it works? I mean, Bryn goes back to Hamilton. I mean, nice to have him come into the environment, and was, look, really, really good for North Harbour this year.
Oh, I thought he was outstanding for them. You know, top point scorer, becoming a pretty astute tactician, one of the best goal kickers in the country, and as Razor says, you know, up for the clutch moments and nails them pretty consistently. So, yeah, just to be really clear, you know, Gats Senior removed himself from all decision making around selection, and you know, when we're assessing the candidates, he really stood out. I personally worked with him previously with the Barbars against British and Irish Lions. Really enjoyed him then, and I think he's going to come in and be a great addition to the squad. Well,
Brownie, one slips away, but for you guys, like you say, rebuilding, only a couple of All Blacks in the environment. A couple of good ones, though, Aaron Smith and Josh Yuwani. They're not bad, but how do you rebuild this organisation to being competitive on a weekly basis? Because you were able to do it this year.
Well, just on Bryn, actually, for me, he was just way too good to be a third first five, so it's great for him to go and get an awesome opportunity at the Chiefs. Too good a player to sit behind two other guys, I think. No, for us, it's trying to get a bit more experience in our squad, and I think we've done that. And to get these young guys really understanding what it takes to perform and beat the best teams in the comp. And as we saw in Aotearoa comp, it's those little moments in the game that let you down, and that's the experience. That's the Luke Romanos. That's the guys that win your games of rugby, and you know, we're trying to develop that through our young guys, but we need to put more experience on top of those guys at the moment at the Highlanders for us to be successful. With
the likes of Fatuli Paia, though, who comes in with plenty of talent, plenty of raps, is he a guy that you think can make a big impact next year?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's ready to get a real crack at Super and start consistently. Obviously been with Razor at the Crusaders for maybe just last year, but he's a big body, and he can offload at will if you don't shut him down. So he's exciting for us, and he reminds me a little bit of Malakai Fekitoa. He's got a bit of that sort of attitude in his game, which is great.
That's not great for opposition's midfield, if you're reminding of Malakai. But you can't underestimate, you talk about experience, the impact that Aaron Smith has on your environment and what he's done, particularly this year. But he's built himself into that real leader. I mean, how much more can you ask of him, really? I mean, the fact that he just continues to stand up.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why I love the competition, because if you look at all the teams, and these guys will agree, that in all of our games last year in the Aotearoa comp, the best players stood up, and the best players won games for you, and the best players ended up then getting chosen for the All Blacks. And for me, that's what this competition's going to represent, and I think it's, that's where we want to challenge ourselves, and it's going to be pretty exciting.
Brownie, were you a reluctant head coach? I know we always said, oh, Brownie's going to get it, but they went out and I know that you're a great thinker of the game and you've really enjoyed being an assistant in the past. I mean, is this a reluctant choice for you? Or
it has been in the past, and I've been open about that. I always have felt that my best coaching's done on the grass and really trying to make players better, focus on the game, and not get distracted by everything else that the head coach does. But obviously, being in Japan for the last couple of years and coaching the Sunwolves as the head coach as well, where you're just getting pumped every week and you're having to motivate your players, try and find ways to win.
I remember that vividly.
You learn a lot as, what it's about to be a head coach, around creating the right environment, creating confidence within your team, even though you know that your team's not quite good enough. And I feel probably now that I'm a lot more experienced to be able to do that. Happy to do it nowadays.
I've got to ask this, though, of all of you. Did you feel that wave of energy around the competition when all of a sudden we'd been starved of rugby and the crowd started to come back? We saw big crowds here in Auckland. Razor, for you, I mean, all of you, is that something that excites you about the fact you can start that again? Because there was something about it that just everyone engaged with.
Yeah, it didn't matter what age the person you were talking to down the street, they were looking for. They actually knew who you were playing. Nothing against the Bulls, but it was who you're playing this week. Or you've got the Canes or the Chiefs or the Blues. They knew what time it was on. They were taking their Sunday afternoon off, and they were pretty excited. So they felt the energy and they brought it to the games. Do
you feel the same the way it was in Hamilton?
Yeah, well, I wasn't involved, but
you were around
as a spectator, I built my whole week around watching a game on Saturday and Sunday, so that probably says how important it was. And you talk to your neighbours, and going across over the hill, obviously had some challenges, but plenty of energy week on week to go out and play the next game.
Look, and Jace, you shouldn't underestimate your performance this year. You guys were right there, got better as the season went on. Did you feel as though it gained some momentum off the field as well? Yeah, definitely. I think the Sunday afternoon games were awesome. And I think even though, we've talked around the D getting a bit more dominant, we always thought we had to score 30 points to win a game of footy. And so that meant there was, a lot of games with 50, 60 points in those games. So I just, playing daytime footy at times and the calibre of the scorelines, I thought really brought a bit of a buzz around the place. It was awesome. Leon, who's the favourite to win the competition next year?
It's a good question. I have to check the TAB odds.
I mean, you look at the squads.
Yeah, you look at the squads and they're all strong. You've got to get out of the blocks. You've got to not have injuries. You've got to get a couple of calls, and you need good leadership. And then I think it's an open book, mate. She's going to be tight.
Is it a sprint or a marathon, Clayton, this competition? For you, coming in fresh, you think it's a sprint or a marathon?
I think it's important to approach the season like it's a sprint. You're going to start well and bank some points, build some confidence, get a bit of cohesion going in your team, potentially earn yourself the opportunity to rest a few guys for the back end of the season. And when you don't do that, it feels like a marathon. It probably is a marathon.
It'll be a marathon for us. It'll be a sprint for all of you. Who are you picking, just quickly? Given all your analysis, just quickly.
You're going to have to wait till January for that.
We're going to have to wait till January. Timo Matson is going to get big and said, like any good coach sitting on the fence. Hey, thank you so much for coming in. Good luck with your naming on Thursday. We're looking forward to it. 87 days. Super Rugby Aotearoa. It kicks off. Good luck, and we'll see you in 7 days here on The Breakdown.